Great. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you. Okay, so how this is going to work, we're going to be here, we're aiming for about an hour and a half. We are going to offer a presentation, and that presentation will be for about the first hour, more or less, of our time. During that time, we will introduce the program to you. You'll get to meet some of the main counselors at the center. We'll give you a virtual walkthrough of the center itself, and you'll be able to ask questions during this time, but because of the volume of people, if you can put your questions in the chat just during the presentation, as your questions come up, we really welcome all questions. And it could be that some of them are going to be answered during the course of the presentation, but we'll also try to, weave our answers into what we're saying. Then, after the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for more direct Q&A. So you'll be able to raise your hands, we can have some conversations, and really try to make sure that all your questions about the center, about the program, about the staff, that they'll be answered. Cool? Everyone's good? Okay, awesome. So I think that's it for my little intro, and I'll hand this over now to my father, Diederik Wolsak, and his partner, Stacy Sully. And they are going to together give you an overview of the history of Choose Again and of the center itself. So over to you, Dad.
Thank you, Sas. What a wonderful introduction, and what an incredible honor it is to be working with my daughter in this amazing environment. Often we get people coming to the center who are having difficulties with their children, or their children having difficulties with their parents. And we've gone through all of that as well, of course. And by consistently doing our work, we're now sitting here committed to our own healing, committed to the path we're both on. So I think that in itself is a wonderful testimonial to what is possible. Where's Stacy? I don't see Stacy.
Right here.
So where do we start, Stace?
Well, how about you talk a little about the history and the overview of Choose Again, the center, a little bit about the backstory of how the center came into being.
Okay, that's an interesting question. The idea for a center came into my befuddled mind in 1964. And that is when I was profoundly depressed, well on my way to become a full-fledged alcoholic. And I went to see a psychiatrist. I had just immigrated to Canada, was desperately lonely and miserable. And I went to a psychiatrist, and I realized, coming back from this gentleman who put me on Ritalin, by the way, which was a disaster, but we'll talk about that some other time. I realized I could never tell any of my friends that I'd gone see a psychiatrist, because in those days, if you went to see a psychiatrist, you were crazy. Now, I knew I was crazy. I just didn't know anybody else to know it. So I thought, because at that time also, I received a magazine from France called Magasin de Madeleine, I think. And in the back of it was a section on real estate. And you could buy an entire village in the Provence for $40,000 that had 12 houses, a church, a little graveyard, a shop, a complete little village. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to buy that and to transform that into what I then called a healing village. And then people in North America could tell their friends, we're going to France for a holiday. In effect, they were going to France for therapy, and they didn't have to tell anybody. And that's where the idea came from. And it never left me. I came up with a number of designs, a number of proposals that I, over the years, submitted to people. And I could never make anything happen till one point, about 19 years ago. A client of mine sat in front of me and said, if you still want to open that healing center in Costa Rica, I'm selling my house and I'm willing to put in 50,000. And I thought, that's wonderful, but I think we need a little more. But by the end of the week, a number of people had come forth, and we suddenly had the money. And my bluff was called. I remember my dear friend Eric, who's in this meeting as well, calling me on a Sunday night saying, we have enough. And I said, oh shit, now it's going to happen. So we opened the center with a great deal of help from Saskia and with a great deal of help from a number of volunteers who came out of our youth program. We had a teenage youth program running for years in Vancouver, which also was where I learned the trade and learned how to work with kids. And the plan was to make this into a center for difficult youths. Pretty soon we realized, number one, the neighborhood that we settled in, which was very sparse, there were 3 or 4 houses, that they were up in arms that we were bringing difficult kids. They didn't want that. And so we gradually started shifting to working with the parents of these difficult kids, which is really where the issue is anyway. And that's where we landed, with parents of difficult kids. And over time, the clientele has changed. In the beginning, there were very much crisis cases, people who were suicidal, people who had been given up by their own therapist or psychiatrist, people who had really reached the end of the rope. And this was going to be it, or if this didn't work, nothing was going to work. Dawn, who is on this call, was also involved at that time, and Dawn and I will remember fondly, perhaps not so fondly, the many, many nights that we're up 3 or 4 in the morning dealing with crisis people. And you can imagine probably that wears you out. And so there came a time, as I was aging and as we were attracting new staff, there came a time that we decided that crisis people need help, obviously, but that we were not in a position anymore to provide that help. And we very gradually shifted to people with depression, anxiety, loneliness, relationship issues, trauma issues, issues that still run a really, really, really strong negative strain through your experience on the planet, but issues we knew we could handle very well. About 5 years into that, we had an independent evaluation done, which indicated that we were more successful with these issues, and including alcoholism, by the way, than anybody else. Our success rate was well over 80%. We haven't had a recent evaluation, but my hunch is that it's higher now. And the reason it's higher is that the staff is unbelievably qualified. They're trained for at least 5 hours in the trenches. They don't come with a PhD from Harvard in psychology, thank God, but they do come with a life experience. And that life experience is what transforms the place. So that's a little bit about the history.
Can you mention a little bit about the core teachings, the deeper insight of the Choose Again philosophy, and what makes it so special? What makes it so different than other therapies or centers?
Yeah, I'm always a little reluctant to talk about other therapies because even though I studied a lot of them initially, but that's now 30 years ago, I don't really know what they're doing now. But I do know what we're doing. And I do know why what we do works from my point of view. And that is that we've learned and proven it over and over and over that everything in my life, every part of my life is chosen by me based on who I think I am. And who I think I am, thank God, is a belief that can be corrected. And when I discovered that for my own healing, pretty well a week after I started my concentrated 24-hour-a-day healing, I felt completely different immediately because I had been known as an asshole, as arrogant, as nasty, as rude, as supremely sarcastic. I don't know if any of you watched House. If you have watched House, then you've been watching me for 8 or 9 episodes or seasons. That's what it was like. And my experience, therefore, was one incredible loneliness. And I thought, honestly, that that's who I was. But when I discovered that that was not true, that yes, my behavior indicated all of that, but that none of that was who I truly was. And that was an unbelievable moment of having my eyes open, saying, my God, there is, even for me, a chance to live a full and rich and happy life. And that's really the core of our foundation. So we don't do diagnosis. We don't believe in your story. As a matter of fact, our process is designed with the first step saying, I'm upset, there's no story. And that is very difficult for people. People are so used to telling their story. They've been gone, they have their own therapist, and they say, I love my therapist. And I go there and I feel so heard and I feel so seen. And then the question is, well, who's the eye that's being heard and seen? They suddenly realize, yeah, that's that same set of beliefs that is seen and heard over and over and over. So when I decide that that set of beliefs is not who I am and not who I want to be, and that I can set out to transform it, that's when the healing begins. So I would say that is the essence of our work. And then step 2, of course, is a direct demonstration of that. And for those of you that are new, that are not living an active step 2 life yet, step 2 says, under all circumstances, it's about me. It's not about anybody else, ever, 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 under any circumstance. And says every newcomer, well, that's a guilt trip because there's a lot of shit in my life. That is all my fault then. So coupled with step 2, I have to take the leap of faith and recognize that, or surrender to the teaching that nothing has ever gone wrong, that whatever has happened in my life contained a healing motivation that I wasn't aware of. So it's almost, you know, the funny line, there's so much shit here, there's got to be a pony somewhere. That's really the colloquial for that experience. So whatever happens in my life now, and I know I'm speaking for the staff and for my beloved Stace, we all do this now. We immediately say, what is this for? And you can imagine how your life changes when that becomes your automatic response. But that automatic response takes training. It doesn't come, oh yeah, I've heard that, now I'm going to apply that. I know all of us, every single one of us still falls back and says, step 2 doesn't apply here. I found an exception. No, you didn't. You just think you did because you want to be right. So those are the 2 core elements. And then, of course, the forgiveness is forgive me for that belief. Forgive me for believing that I'm, for example, the ubiquitous not good enough. I've never met a person who doesn't have that as one of their absolute core beliefs. I'm not good enough. It's a belief you make up at a very early age. It will never be true. And as I transform it, things start shifting. It's quite incredible. It's quite miraculous, actually.
Can you talk a wee bit about the types of clients that come, the people that come through the center? The types of
I've discussed a little bit of the gradual
issues.
transformation from crisis to a different level, and also the level of maturity has changed. We are now, I think our average age now is 42, 45 or so. That doesn't mean we don't get, last year we had a 92-year-old and we also get 18-year-olds. That absolutely still happens. But there is a shift. And the other shift that's taken place is in the demographics of our clients. And that could be because this work does require an IQ over 50. There are elements in this work that are really challenging from an intellectual point of view. And so we see that our clients seem to become more and more better educated, post-grad education or post-high school education, professionals. That doesn't mean we don't get high school dropouts. We do. So there is this wonderful blend. And I remember Eric, when he first came, he sat next to a 16-year-old dropout. And in the break, in the first circle, he said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm sitting next to this kid and we're working with different problems. And half an hour into the circle, both of them began to cry and they realized they're working on exactly the same problem. So it doesn't really matter. So whatever you think you bring to the center, first of all, nobody will be surprised. We've heard it all. We've seen it all. We've probably experienced it ourselves already. And it's everybody's story. And that's the power of the circle. So the circle gives you an opportunity to hear your own process reflected in so many other people. And that makes it an exponentially more effective healing environment than one-on-one, from my point of view.
Mhm.
I was just thinking about one time being in a circle and I looked around after everybody had introduced themselves, and there was such a range of people, from doctors to lawyers to psychotherapists to a homeless kid. It was amazing. It was, I mean, talk about humanity. And like you said, everybody got down to just about the same thing. Even though it looked like there was such a range of difference, we were all the same. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, Stace?
Sass, did you have something to say?
So there are a couple of questions in the chat. The first one was, how do you judge the success rate of addiction when you were talking about the success rate? Is it 1 year sober, or how would you assess that?
I love that question, because that sets us apart from any other substance treatment center or treatment approach. How I judge success is that I no longer drink myself in order to kill myself. So if I were to go to an AA meeting, I would say, my name is Diederik, and I hated myself so much I almost killed myself with booze. So we don't recognize the disease. We don't ever say I'm powerless. So it's a whole different, it's a very profoundly different approach. And so consequently, I don't really look at success as 100% sobriety. For me, success is I'm no longer out of control when I have a sip of wine. I'm no longer out of control with whatever substance. Of course, you're going to stop all truly self-destructive substances, which is hard drugs and coke and horrible stuff like that. But other than that, if you have a glass of wine once in a while, do or don't. But there's not that fear. So our program is love-based. It's not fear-based. Our program doesn't tell you if you have one glass of wine, you're going to die or you're going to fall off the wagon. It doesn't happen anymore. And the reason it doesn't happen anymore, because I'm no longer full of self-hatred and riddled with a self-destructive desire. And Stacy and I were talking about this not too long ago, and how much of my 50 years before the center, or 50 years before I started my healing, had such an incredibly self-destructive line running through it. But that was purely self-hatred. That was not an illness. That was not a condition that needed to be cured. That was a belief, and that belief demanded evidence. And the evidence was, in my case, a bottle of vodka a day. Pretty powerful evidence. Now, I haven't had a drink in, I don't know, a year, I think, but not out of fear. I just have no desire. The desire is gone. So there is a remarkable difference between AA and our approach. And our approach leads to an 80% success rate. Is that total sobriety? I doubt it. But most people here, on occasion, have a glass of wine, or when they go to a wedding, they may sip some champagne. God bless you. Now, in the past, when I sipped the champagne, there would be not enough bottles to satisfy my self-destructive urge. So that was the problem with me. So my self-destructive nature, which was absolutely the result of a strong belief in self-hatred, made it unstoppable. And when that was lifted and transformed, not an issue.
Yeah, thank you. And there's just a follow-up, couple other questions. I think we'll get to some a bit later in the presentation, but a follow-up one is from Rob. Is there support at the center if you have a breakdown, for example?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, originally, we had people that came with breakdowns and were in breakdowns pretty well every day and all day. Donna's laughing because she went through many of those. I don't really know what a breakdown is anymore, to be honest. I have trouble labeling things, as you may have noticed by now. So I would say, yes, people have breakdowns. I would say breakthroughs is more the word I would use, and that can look like a breakdown. So a breakdown to me is a very important time when suddenly all defenses go down and all whatever's in there comes pouring out, and sometimes in a very, let's say, over excessive way from an outsider's point of view, but it's necessary. So I'm not afraid of it. None of us are afraid of it. I welcome it. The more you break down, the more you break through. It's really that simple for me. So there's no fear. Under some extreme circumstances, we have 2 psychiatrists on standby that we can call. If somebody really gets into trouble, then we can call them and say, what shall we do? And they will then prescribe something that will help people through that particular period of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Stace. So I'd like to move on, and some of the other questions I see in the chat, I think will be answered
Okay.
subsequently. So yeah, thank you. For me, really the most incredible, I said this in the intro a little bit, aspect of this program, there's the work itself that is transformative and simple tools that you can learn to work with your own mind in your everyday life, that really, for me, transforms the nature of my relationships, that's for sure. But we have the privilege here of having a few of our most senior staff members, counselors, here in this meeting. And as I said, I think, Dad, you misspoke briefly. You said all of our counselors have at least 5 hours of training. I think you said hours, but I know you meant years. And
Well, I said at least 5 hours, but actually 5 years.
5 years, yeah. So I would love to hear a little bit just from a few of the senior staff members that if you were to come to El Cielo this winter, and some of them any time of year, any year, they'll be here. And what I would love to hear is a little bit about yourself and about your own, how you came to choose again, what your issues were that you were working with or that you have worked with in your life. And as well, maybe if there's something that's a current teaching that is helpful for you in your own practice or in your personal life right now. And I'm asking this just to also emphasize that everybody here at the center is really doing their own work. You may not see staff members processing in the participant circles that we have in the program, but I guarantee you in the staff meetings, that's what's happening. And I think for me, one of the most inspiring aspects of working at the center is having this attitude that so long as anybody's upset in the staff meeting, we're not going to go forward with making decisions. We know that the decisions won't be the right ones, and they'll be based on maybe trying to placate or someone's trying to get their way. So we have a pretty stringent approach of everyone does their own process until you're clear and centered. And then we decide, okay, what is the day going to look like? How are we going to work with this client, or how are we going to approach this part of the program? So these are a group of highly trained individuals, not just trained, let's say, academically, maybe not academically at all, but in terms of personal experience, which I think by transmission, that's really the only way to teach this work. So on that note, Dawn Green, I would love if you could just say a little bit about yourself, your relationship to Choose Again, and to this work, personally and professionally. Yeah, thank you.
Well, hi, everybody. It's great to be here. When I think about this work, I think about Diederik, because when Diederik started his center, I had been a private client of his for, I don't know, maybe 6 years or so. And I became a client of his because I was at the end of my second marriage breaking down, and I was really devastated by that. And I found something, so I wanted a counselor who was spiritually based in the principles of oneness, because that had been my learning for many years. And I had the most amazing experience. I went to a few of Diederik's circles in Vancouver. He was doing them there at the time, because I wanted to check him out and make sure that he was the real deal in terms of my healing process. And then I went to him for some sessions, and I think for the first 4 sessions, my memory is that when I showed up, I could not do anything but cry. And in my memory, I did that for 4 hours, and Diederik sat there and he looked at me with complete acceptance. And that was a new experience for me. And, looking at it now, I realize there was really a lot going on in that silence. There was a silence, there wasn't anything to say. And yet being in the face of that, allowing the upset that was there in the ego mind of me, allowing it, but seeing past it to what was true. I didn't know that was going on at the time. I just knew that it was something I wanted to keep doing. And after 4 times, a lot of the upset had been released and transformed, again, without any words, but just having a witness who was clear. And then we started, I started having the conversation about my ex-husband, etc., and working with the 6 steps, so that over time, not at the beginning. At the beginning, I felt I did want to be very right about how deeply I'd been hurt and how unfairly I'd been treated. But over time, what was really, really apparent to me is that being with this person allowed me to see the measure of my own self-hatred. That after, the honeymoon phase was over with, there were behaviors that came up in him that triggered my self-hatred. And that was the purpose. The purpose of that relationship was so that my mind may be healed, not so that I could have someone. For me, his job was to make up the injuries that I had received in my childhood and throughout my life. That was his job, to keep me okay. And through the work that I did with Diederik, and, when I ran into the 6 steps, I did it like my life was depending on it. I kept a copy in my pocket because the quality of my life was certainly depending on it. So what that brought me to, after a lot of years, actually, there was a sense of a bit of peace, then some peace. But when I really got from the 6 steps, step 2, that, oh, this is about me. What I felt was a huge space that was there that said, I'm okay. This person is not going to hurt me. I may hurt me with the thoughts and beliefs I have about myself, but that I can choose. I have power over that now because I understand what the process is. And through that, a lot of my defenses started to soften. I didn't have to tiptoe around and be so afraid of people all the time, that I could be very aggressive, to protect that. All of that over time, and in some instances over a lot of time, disappeared, softened, disappeared. So I think that might be enough. Is that enough for now?
Fantastic. Thank you, Dawn. Yeah. Thank you. And Freddie, I wonder if you would say a word.
Hello. Well, first of all, after 13 years, I still haven't got my 5 hours of training. How about that? It's a weird place, El Cielo, you know. Training tends to be understood by someone else training me. And it's the training just happens through being there and participating. And it's just an ongoing process. It's a very different type of training. That aside, so yes, it's one of these days, it's going to be 13 years ago that I attended my first Choose Again workshop with Diederik in Belgium, of all places. Belgium is also the country that I've lived in for over 50 years, and I currently am in Belgium on holiday. To my own surprise, you know, well, surprise and no, yeah, it was a surprise, but there is on another level, it's in a way, it's not a surprise. I ended up becoming a part of the Choose Again team, and then I will say it took my time, and that means years and years. I try to avoid to step up the next step and just stayed in my kitchen where I felt comfortable and happy and joyful and could do what I love to do, and I still love to do that. But then, you know, at some point there was no longer I could no longer let's say deny that the time had come to step up, and then ever so reluctantly dip my my first big toe in into the facilitation of circles. And now I love it, you know, for many years now. I absolutely love it. I actually start missing it. It's been a while now. It's been a week now since I've done the workshops in France. So now I actually start missing it. It has become such a it's not work, but it's what really nourishes myself. That's once again the weird thing about all of this. Uh, uh, this work is and sharing this work is actually I find the most nourishing thing that I can do for myself, and if anyone else benefits from it, all the better. Anything else?
No, that's wonderful. Dad, you have something? Did you mean to raise your hand?
No, that hand got raised. I don't know who raised it. Must have been something way beyond me. I just wanted to say about both Dawn's and Freddie's process. You heard them saying it took a long time. Why did it take such a long time? Because beliefs are tenacious little bastards. Like Freddie's belief that he was not a leader, that nobody wanted to hear from him, that the only thing he could do was cook, was a very powerful belief. So even though we saw Fred's talent, we saw Dawn's talent, they themselves held them back. Their belief held them back. And consequently, when that belief finally was released or began to be released, they became incredible counselors because they went through that. And that's, we talked about it yesterday in the circle, that the most universal belief is I'm not good enough. And I can ask for a raise of hand and 74 hands will go up today, or 80, whatever number of people it is. That belief will destroy your life. It will seep into every aspect of your life till you recognize that that's where it comes from. Now, that's just one. There's a few more core beliefs, but that's one that's so ubiquitous and so universal. It's amazing. So I'm really grateful to Dawn and Freddie for their perhaps you can call it lengthy healing process, but it was the best healing process possible, obviously. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Gad, would you just introduce yourself, say a little bit about what you do for Choose Again and how it's worked in your life?
Sure. My name is Gadi. I joined Choose Again about 7 years ago, a bit more than 7 years ago. Probably the opposite of what Freddie and Dawn were describing in terms of how slowly I came into it. I think the belief of not being good enough shows up differently in my life. Actually, it shows up as I think that I can do everything, and that has been my pattern. Let's say, coming into the center. Diederik was away for a while, and I quickly became a facilitator, quickly became a counselor. But just because I'm a facilitator or counselor, and then later ended running the center, doesn't mean that belief hasn't been deeply questioned and challenged. The idea that I'm not good enough and that I'm guilty, and why am I taking so much responsibility? Why do I put myself in these situations? So the last 7 years have been incredibly healing. I've also had the privilege of working with a lot of wonderful people that have come over the years, and to learn from them. I feel that being a facilitator is really it's a process of self-healing. It's magical because everyone heals in this process, myself and everyone that joins. And I love that about the center. I love that idea that we're all doing this together, and that everyone's coming from my healing, and then I show up for them also. And it's an incredible privilege. I've grown a lot. I would say the issue, apart from those beliefs, but let's say how that shows up in my life, that issue not feeling not good enough or guilty, is in finding myself in what, let's say, emerging out of or learning how to be outside of codependent relationships. And how to do step 2 is to how to do that, how to know that this is really about me, and whatever is going on around me, it's totally my responsibility how I feel about what's happening. It's been unbelievably liberating to know that I have a choice, and that I'm free. So I'm very grateful for that, and grateful to be able to share that and to work with people. And so thank you, Diederik, and thank you for everyone Choose Again for creating this thing. Yeah, that's it. I'm complete.
Thank you. Yeah, Dad?
Yeah, I just want to add something that to what Gadi said. Gadi came as a very evolved individual who'd spent a lot of time studying spirituality, a lot of time in new non-dualistic environment. In other words, he didn't come like a newbie. But it was, I remember, I'll never forget it, at the dining room table a little while ago, he said, I've been here 6 or 7 years now, and I'm beginning to understand the value of step 2. That tells you something. That tells you how difficult it is to consistently apply step 2. Why is it so difficult? Because I want to be right. So the desire, the addiction to being right is an incredibly powerful addiction. So thank you, Gadi, for not only beginning to understand it, but to demonstrate a very deep understanding of it now.
Thank you. And this winter we'll be lucky also to have Stacy at the center as a counselor. And I wonder, Stacy, could you introduce yourself?
Thanks, As. My name is Stacy, and I was introduced to the work from Diederik when we got together about 10 years ago. And I would say that I was a cautious observer for a couple of years. I was a therapist in my own right. I had a full practice. I loved what I did. My healing journeys took me down some deep roads of my own self-therapy and my clients. But when I met Dee, I saw somebody who was so joyful, so happy, and so unaffected and unreactive to life. And I wondered how that was, how somebody could be that way all the time. And I remember watching him like a hawk the first year, thinking, oh, there's got to be a crack. There's got to be a facade. There's got to be something, that's going to go off. And it didn't. And for those 2 years, like I said, I watched very carefully, and I went to the center. I participated in circles, but I was very quiet. I just watched the work, and I watched the work with the people that were practicing it. And then I jumped in. And when I jumped in and actually took step 2 on as my own, life changed in a way that it was remarkable. My relationships, my own mind, the level of peace that I had, the way I looked at things, the process was incredible. And I couldn't believe something so, quote, simple was so effective. Now, It's simple and it's not, because the commitment that it requires to become bulletproof is the task, and it became a lifestyle. So I'm deeply grateful. I love the work. I love watching what the work does in people's lives. You see what happens on their face when they do a process. Part of the reason I love the center so much is that the container is so one focused and one pointed, and everybody there is going in the same direction. We're all holding each other accountable, and we're holding ourselves accountable to get the maximum out of the work and the maximum out of our own healing and the client's healing. So I could go on and on and on about how this work has changed my life, and I use it now in my practice, and how it changes the lives of my clients. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful.
Great, thanks. Thank you so much, everybody. So we'll now hear a bit about the program itself. And, you know, I think you can tell that a lot of our staff, we've done a lot of work coming from a lot of love and vision and clarity. And then how does that love and vision take form, practically speaking, when you come here for a 10-day workshop? So Gadi is going to introduce that element. Thank you.
Thanks, Sass. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this works. Okay. Can everyone see the slideshow? In a minute, it's loading. There it is. Yeah?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so the way that we work at the center these days is in this format or model of 10-day workshops. We found that that's an incredibly useful way, powerful way, focused way. I mean, people have less time these days and they want to get results quickly. The 10-day workshop model works fantastically well. It's small groups that arrive every 2 weeks, and we just start a journey with them. We go through a process that's just proven itself, like it was mentioned, has proven itself over the last almost 20 years, but we've refined it and made it even more focused and more powerful and more fitting of our lifestyles today. So that's the idea. You can come for a 10-day workshop. It starts every 2 weeks, and every workshop includes the following. So we really think of it, I mean, the heart of the workshop is the 6-step process, in this process that we've been talking to you about, and training our clients in doing this work so that they can use it in the long run. They can transform their lives using this process. That's the heart. That's really our mission in these workshops. But we've designed a comprehensive, holistic program to support that. So that includes, so firstly, it's small groups, which is also quite unique, up to 10 participants, and there's a high staff to client ratio. It was mentioned before, the question of what happens if there's a breakdown. Yeah, we have a lot of staff to hold people and to help them to move through whatever they're going through, so it becomes a breakthrough, not a breakdown. So up to 10 participants. Again, the heart of the program is our daily therapy sessions using the 6-step process, what we refer to as circles, but they're really very powerful therapeutic sessions that happens every day and throughout the day. In a way, we create an environment where that practiced by everyone, and in every moment there's reminders to keep practicing, to doing step 2 and looking at what's happening in our minds. We'll also be coaching people in meditation and mindfulness practices, how to watch the mind, how to be aware, how to stay present, notice upsets, notice feelings as they come up. Another very important part of this program is our holotropic breathing sessions. We do those at least once, more actually. It's scheduled more into the program, but these are incredibly powerful sessions that allow us also to go deeper. You know, I know there's been a kind of a trend in the last few years of people looking to do ayahuasca retreats and psychedelic retreats, and there's a lot of talk around that. We've been doing this for the last 20 years just without using any substances, and it's just a much more clean and healthy and powerful and just as effective. So to bring that modality, that's why it's such an important modality, because it allows you to go underneath your conscious mind, to go to the deeper places that we might not get to with the 6 steps. The breathings can help to create these huge breakthroughs. Another component is the digital detox. That's an optional thing that didn't used to be optional, but now it is, again, because of our clientele. That's unbelievably helpful. And we more than just recommend it, we really strongly suggest it to people that they come and put away their phone so they can really focus. So and everyone that does that has an incredible experience. It's just that, and we know how powerful that is for people. How powerful the opposite is, the addiction to phones and addictions to devices. So that's something that's offered. Of course, yoga and movement, and our food is fantastic. You'll see some pictures later. You'll see some videos. We can talk about it a bit more. And excursions, very important also. You know, the program is very intense, but we also love to celebrate life, I would say, and celebrate Costa Rica and celebrate the place where we are. So we like to take our clients to unbelievably beautiful places so that they can enjoy that part and also feel their own openings. You know, there's nothing like going to a beach after several days of intense healing and just feeling the majesty of where we are. So we like to give that experience to people. I'll show you some pictures later. You'll get some more of a taste of that. And yeah, just the whole thing is we're nestled in this amazing environment, just on the lake side of the lake in Costa Rica, surrounded by trees and animals and very teeming with life. So enough bullet points. Let's see some pictures maybe. Okay, before that, actually, I want to talk about the themes. So we do 3 themes currently. We work with 3 themes. The first one is healing and intimate and family relationships. We spoke about that a little bit, the importance of this work and the effect of it on this very important dimension of our lives. That's one theme that we work with. So this is for couples, for families, but even, you know, working with your boss or working with any relationship that is intimate in that sense, that someone that you spend a lot of time with. We work on getting to the root of the issues. The other one, another theme that we work with is called freedom from trauma. Again, we have a very, very particular way of understanding what trauma is that I think is very effective, maybe surprising for some people, but it's definitely effective. So people who associate or have that idea of trauma or have that experience in their minds, we like to work with them and show them a different way of working with trauma, something that's different than how other people would do that. And then we have this theme that's called Heal Your Mind, Transform Your Life, which is a kind of a catch-all. That's like the Choose Again basics, I would say. So it's not a specific theme, it's just really the principles of our work. And that's this one. So, and that's the idea. Heal your mind, you'll transform your life. I want to heal my beliefs, and I heal the one that's making all these choices that have led to the life that I'm living right now. My life will change naturally. We also highly recommend, and we offer this program called the 28-day intensive, which is 2 consecutive workshops with some integration days in between. Out of those 2 workshops, it will be always Heal Your Mind, Transform Your Life, and then it will be one of the other 2. And many people choose to do this. They get to come for a month to be at the center and to immerse themselves in this, and we find this to be, again, unbelievably helpful and powerful. So that's that. And then I want to talk a little bit about a typical day, what a typical day looks like. So we start early in the morning with a morning meditation, enjoying the beautiful sunrises here and the sounds of the birds. And it's such a magical place here on the shores of Lake Arenal. This is the Arenal volcano. If you see that pyramid in the horizon, that's not a pyramid, as you said, Diederik. That's a volcano. It's kind of amazing, huh? So that's we wake up to this kind of scene, this beauty, and sit down together and meditate and start the day with very strong intention, setting the goal for the day, and then we start moving. So there'll be either a walk up to the hills to get a view of the lake, or a yoga class, so we can start to move the energy in the body, wake ourselves up. Then we breakfast. Breakfasts are always very, very abundant, very rich, full of fruits, and very varied. So some days we have very typical Costa Rican breakfast. Other days we have very beautiful continental breakfast. But there's always going to be fruits, lots of greens, and especially microgreens, which is something that we grow here at our center. It's incredibly nutritious sprouting. And we have a greenhouse here. You'll see some videos of that later. So we really have put a lot of thought and care into the food here, and a lot of energy goes into making sure that only the best, the most nutritious food is served. At 9:30, our group therapeutic sessions begin. So this is the circle area. Here's another view of the circle area. We're basically outside. I think that's, maybe Diederik will mention that a bit later. We'll come back to that. It's such an important part of this immersion in nature. And this is it. This is really where the work happens. This is where we learn to do the 6 steps. This is where we look at our conflicts and issues and learn to see them differently and heal the childhood beliefs that have created these issues. Very intensive, but very beautiful, very powerful sessions. So Diederik in a circle. I love this picture. And then, okay, 12:30, we go gather for lunch. Again, lots of greens. You see all these greens are from our greenhouse. We're it's just an amazing blessing. Like, let's say these greens were picked maybe 10 minutes before this picture was taken. So that's the kind of vibrancy that you get here, and a lot of care and love that's put into the food. After lunch, we might go for a short walk just to move the energy again. But then we have these encounters with wildlife. These are monkeys just surrounding our property. You get to see them a lot. There's several families of these monkeys that we live with are around us. They're not dangerous, by the way, they're very friendly. In the afternoon, so after lunch, after the walk, there's afternoon activities. I'll talk briefly about what they may be. So some of them may be more like dyad sessions. We call them dyad sessions, working one-on-one with another clients. We find that working with clients, practicing this work with another client is a very, very helpful way to learn this work. We may also do some readings or study some of the theoretical ideas behind this work in a bit more depth. That happens in the afternoon. I mentioned the holotropic breathing sessions. That's a photo from one of those sessions. Again, extremely powerful, transformative sessions. And that happens scheduled twice. We may do more, twice during the workshop, maybe more. And then sometimes when the weather permits it, we go out, we do these incredible walks up in the hills. This is the windmills next to the lake. The lake is very windy, so we have these beautiful windmills that we take our clients. And again, it's just the uplifting experience of walking after releasing so many beliefs. There's really nothing like it. So in some of the afternoons, we go out on outings. So we take our clients out of the center. This is a picture of one of the hot springs that we like to take people to. Again, to take a break from the intensity of the program, and also just to kind of get into a different mode of unwinding, relaxing, letting go, and feeling blessed. We like to take people to this beautiful restaurant next to the lake. This is a beautiful sunset next to the lake. And in the beach, we have these blessed to be about an hour and a half, a couple of hours from these amazing remote beaches that no one knows about. Only we and a few other locals know about. So you'll end up basically being just us, the group, in these unbelievably pristine beaches. And we like to do that during the workshop, towards the end of the workshop. There's a kind of a culmination in the beach. It's also an amazing opportunity to integrate. So, and then every evening, whether we've gone to the beach or not, or we gather, we finish the day around our table, and the evening in a very cozy atmosphere, and we share our gratitudes with each other and close the day like that and get ready for another day. Another day of healing, another day in paradise, as Diederik likes to say. Yeah. So that's it. That's just a kind of a quick run through of the day. We'll show you a little video later. You'll get to see it a bit more, maybe a bit more. We'll come alive a bit more. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are about to show a video of a walkthrough of the center, and but I think before we do, Gadi, there was one question in particular for you that you said you have that Choose Again is a different point of view of trauma.
Yeah.
And could you say something about this? And Dad, you may also want to speak to this, but Gadi,
I'll let Diederik answer that. I think Diederik should.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. At least I think we do. We get a lot of clients who had tremendously upsetting experiences in their youth. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, abandonment, you name it. And those are generally labeled as traumatic experiences. And it's generally accepted that your life is going to be impacted by those the rest of your life. And I had the great fortune of spending 3.5 years in a concentration camp, and I realized that that probably would qualify for trauma, and it probably would give me an excuse or a reason to be miserable and depressed and basically destroy my life. And then I realized it doesn't have to. And so I came up with a new way of looking at trauma for me. And again, it doesn't have to fit for you, but it does fit for me, and it does fit for how we work. Trauma to me is the misinterpretation of something that happened in my youth, or the misinterpretation of something that happened at any time. That's what it is. And the teaching that is behind that is very simply, it's a very simple, powerful teaching. And that says, I've given everything all the meaning it has for me. So when I looked at my years in the camps, I had given that a meaning. And I recognized as I began doing my work that that meaning could be changed. I could give it another meaning. And as I realized I could give it another meaning, the camp years ceased to be experienced as traumatic. They began to be seen as healing opportunities. They began to be seen as gifts that I could never have gotten anywhere else. And so the shift from, oh my God, my youth was so traumatic, to, yes, things happened, and I experienced them as awful, but I can now reinterpret them. I can now learn to see them differently. And I guarantee you, all of you who've had traumatic experiences, because I believe that every one of us has traumatic experiences. The simple act of birth is a traumatic experience. Every one of us had trauma. Every one of us can, if you choose to do so, transform that experience. And that's really why that trauma workshop is so powerful and so effective. And it doesn't go to the new age, well, nothing happened, or to the new age, well, why did you ask for that? We don't do that shit. We do, yes, it did happen. And what are we going to do about it? There's a funny little line that says, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. And that comes from reinterpretation of what happened, to see it differently, to learn, to see, to recognize that I have given everything all the meaning it has for me. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's great to see some other questions coming in, and we'll get to them a little later. But right now we've made a little video so you can have a sense of a walkthrough of the center and the property and the garden. So I'll just share my screen 1 second. Okay, I trust you can see this. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're in northwestern Costa Rica, which is in Central America. And we're really surrounded by a lot of incredible rainforest. So to answer the person's question, are there lots of are there big bugs in the area? I'm grateful to say there are still a few. This is the view from the dining room. Speaking as a naturalist, I'll just say it can be a bit distracting to be at the center, but we do have daily walks that are silent in the hills and the forest all around the center. It's an incredible chance to really engage with the environment. Dining room, where we have a little library. This is the optimal spot for morning tea and reading, meditation. Mornings are in silence, by the way, until breakfast. This is our circle area.
Yeah.
We made this little video between workshops, right? So we have a chance to really view all the parts of the property. This is where we have yoga, meditation, breathing. Sometimes we have a movie night in this room.
What are you doing? Oh yeah. Okay.
It can be a process. We don't actually have that many insects, and for some people it can be a process, but I would say that the beauty and wonder outweighs anything. And if you process one issue, you process all the other places that this fear or concern may show up in your life, and this is a beautiful place to do that. Yeah. So we have several buildings for accommodation, and they all have a lake view and a shared veranda with everyone gets a rocking chair or two. Bird life. I mean, Costa Rica is a famous biodiversity hotspot, right? So you're really surrounded by incredible species that you really won't see anywhere else in the world. So the accommodations we provide are either shared. You can have a shared room with two people or a single room for yourself. Each room has a private bathroom. Very simple, comfortable, focused. The emphasis again is on the view and the being really in the jungle and the peace that comes with that. It's a radical change from most of our daily lives. Hungry? So, our counselors also do a lot of the cooking, especially for dinner. As you heard, Freddie is an amazing cook, as is Gadi. I used to be a chef, a sushi chef. And we all have a lot of life experience and love and care that all aspects of this center.
So instead of the cooking the breast whole, you slice.
So it's a fairly big property, many acres, and some of it is wild rainforest. And for that reason, we have the monkeys showing up. And then we also have beautiful gardens.
Hola, ¿se puede decir hola? Ok, gracias.
Yeah, a lot of flowers and fruits. Okay. Thank you. So, cool. Are we back? All right. So, I appreciate the little conversation in the chat. So it just started to rain here.
a little conversation in the chat about insects. Carol Glauser saying she's now switched from phobia into curiosity and fascination through her time here. I would say that's true about all fears in my life at this point. Learning how to be curious and open and really loving and grateful for whatever is coming my way. Before we go straight into questions, we just want to talk a little bit about the logistics of coming here to be part of this program. So Diederik, if you want to talk a little bit about the costs, our scholarship program, also about Costa Rica itself and getting here, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, getting there, it's particularly from the East Coast of the US, it's a really easy flight. You fly into Liberia. Liberia is the second airport in Costa Rica. The first one is San Jose. San Jose is a lot further from the center, about 4.5-hour drive. And we strongly urge you to come fly into Liberia. And then most people fly in the afternoon and then spend the night in a hotel, usually at the Hilton, which is 2 minutes from the airport. And then we meet you with a private car and whisk you off to the center, which is about an 1.5-hour drive from Liberia. And that brings you to the center before lunch, and you fall right into the program after lunch and you begin your work. The costs recently, last year, we discovered, we were very late in discovering that our cost had almost doubled in the last 10 years. And we were still sitting at a fee that was more related to the 90s than the 2024s. And so we were in a position we had to raise our fees. Having said that, the fees are now at a level where we can continue with our absolute commitment to make it available to as many people as possible. And that means that if you want to come and you need or you require financial assistance, don't hesitate to contact us. If we have sufficient amount in our scholarship fund, then by all means, we'll do whatever we can to help you attend. In the past, I can say with my hand on my heart, I've never turned anybody away because of lack of money. Now, because of the staggering costs, Costa Rica is now more expensive than France. So I'll give you a little background. It's amazing what happened in this country. One of the reasons we came to Costa Rica originally, and I'll be blunt, was because we could afford it there. We could afford to provide the service we did at a price that people could afford to pay. Now, if I again have to be honest, we'd be a lot better off financially to have a center in France. It's a lot cheaper than Costa Rica. That's a bit strange, but that's how it is. So speaking of the scholarship fund, if you feel inclined to make a small donation, some people make a $10 a month donation, some people make a $100 a month donation, a small donation to our scholarship fund, that would bring the program within reach to so many people. And that continues to be my passion and our passion, because we're so committed to helping people. None of us, I can be absolutely clear about this, none of us ever went into this with an idea of making money. That's not why we're here. We're here because it's a calling. We're here because it's an absolute vocation, you could say, a devotion. What was your next question, Celsi? Oh, the security. Oh, yeah. There's been some stories recently about Costa Rica and whether it's safe. Then I asked myself, well, how safe is it in Vancouver? And I know a friend of mine who lives in a part of Vancouver, and she was burglarized 4 times in 6 months. The last time we did have a burglary was, I think, 15 years ago. And that's the only time it's happened. So it is an incredibly safe place. You're whisked from the airport in a private car directly to the center. Any outings, as Saskia mentioned, the hot springs, or Gadi mentioned the hot springs and the beach is our private bus. So you're not exposed to any, even the idea of danger is not an issue. It's a stunning place from every point of view.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So we have a bit more time. We have about 18 minutes left in the scheduled duration of this call, although we will stay on longer for those who have pressing questions if we don't get to them. But I'd like to get to a few of the questions that are in the chat. Andrea in particular was asking if someone, oh wait, the chat's moving. If someone can speak to physical illness and healing physical illness, I guess, in the context of this work.
Well, since I wasn't unmuted, I'll continue. Because of my incredibly ridiculous advanced age, I've been subjected to a number of illnesses. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And 2 years ago, or a year ago, I was struck by a virus that attacked my vestibular. The lung cancer we healed, Stacy and I healed through incredibly dedicated and disciplined diet, as well as a lot of laughter and a lot of love, and without medication, without medical intervention. A week before the lung was supposed to come out, I looked at Stacy and I looked at the oncologist and I said, we're not taking it out. We're going to see what we're going to do. And if I die, I die. I never had any concern about that. Rheumatoid arthritis came, and again, we used the same approach of love, of laughter, of not taking myself seriously, of never seeing myself as a victim. And people now say when they see me, or before this latest disease, they say, you don't have rheumatoid arthritis. Well, I do. And these things can be done. However, I want to make absolutely clear that our work is never, ever, ever done in order to heal the body, because it's identification with the body that is the disease. So to take my awareness off the body completely, 100%, and recognize that I'm not a body, that I have a body, and that body has cancer, or that body has this illness or that illness, but that's not who I am. And by making that clear distinction between my identity of spirit, unlimited eternal spirit, and the body, I think the body stands a much better chance to heal, because the body is no longer held responsible for my experience. I mean, Stace will tell you that my experience physically right now is not a lot of fun. I can barely walk, and I sleep way more than anybody should. Things that I used to enjoy, I can no longer do. I have headaches, I'm dizzy, etc., and poor me. However, I never say poor me. It is not about that, because that's the body. There's an incredible line in the Course in Miracles, that says, health is inner peace. Health is inner peace. So if you think you're going to heal the body with this work, we need to work on that aspect first before you can actually start your healing, because your healing has to be of the mind. And the body may follow suit and may not, but that becomes completely irrelevant to you. The deeper you go, the more you realize it's not about the body. And I hope that answers your question and gives you some idea of what is possible, and it doesn't matter.
Thank you. So this leads to another question that someone had. Donna observed, it seems there is an overlap to the Course in Miracles in some of the ideas that you're sharing. And I wonder if you could speak to that.
Yes, there is an overlap. I mean, the Course became my manual. In 1991, somebody gave me A Course in Miracles, and I found the title very interesting, so I opened it, and I read, sin is lack of love as darkness is lack of light. And I thought, my God, that's brilliant. And I've always felt that and always thought that to be true. And then I read the next line. That was about the Holy Spirit and the Father. And I said, oh, no, this is not for me. And I threw the book away. And 2 years later, in 93, I was deeply depressed, suicidal, drinking again, excessively, intentionally self-destructive. And I opened the Course again. And I didn't see any of the offending language. I only saw the message. And the message is something entirely different from what I thought it was. And the message is, as I mentioned earlier, there's nothing wrong with you. You are as God created you. And I had to learn to use the word God. I hated the word God. A lot of people that come to Center do. I had to look at that. What meaning had I given the word God? Well, that came from my youth. Now, I actually live where the Course says God is in everything you see. I now know that to be true. So I look at a chestnut tree right out my window, and that's God. I look at my cell phone, that's God. So God is in everything I see. So the word God became something entirely different. And it became a connection with everything as oneness. So I don't see the Course as even remotely a religious teaching. I see it as an unbelievably effective manual for living a rich and full life and a mind training. And I've never come across a reading that provides me with mind training. I've read a lot of wonderful stuff and a lot of wise people and a lot of really deep insights I've gleaned from those teachers. But I've never come across a manual that gives me lessons, that tells me this, if you do this, you'll have this experience. And that's part of what we incorporated into our work. And of course, we incorporate Buddhist teaching, Taoist teaching, Rumi teaching, Meister Eckhart teaching, you name it. A lot of teachers have said the same thing over the last 3,000 years. And that to me is so reassuring. If there was only one person that said this, I'd say, well, I'm a little concerned about that. But it's so universal in teaching. So you can say, and if you know the Course, you'll recognize, particularly when you read my book, you'll see a lot of references to the Course. But I take that word seriously. I call it a course. It is a course. So I hope that explains that question, Sas. Complete on that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Dr. Catwater Citizen has asked, what is your position on staging interventions versus providing a safe space for people to make their own choice? You know, when it comes, I'm imagining, when it comes to healing, when it comes to coming to the center, coming to a program.
An intervention, actually, in the beginning, as I said, when we had a different, a more crisis clientele, that was not an uncommon experience.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened through an intervention, that you would often get a client who absolutely did not want to be there, who was not ready, who had no desire to heal. The desire to heal came from the guilt of the people surrounding them. And that guilt was, of course, masked and looked like, oh my God, we care about this person, we're going to have an intervention. But I would really, if somebody comes on an intervention basis, we'll of course work with them. However, I would prefer to see someone saying the way I did it.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be another way. I am now desperate. I'm now suicidal. I've come to the end of my rope. There has to be another way. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it can be somebody else. Because I know that Saskia, as well as my eldest daughter, for years told me I was an alcoholic. For years told me to not smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I didn't hear a word of it. It didn't mean anything to me. So what somebody else tells me to do, I don't think it's going to be as effective as my own decision. I've had it. I can't do this anymore. I've tried to do this on my own, and I'm absolutely running the ship onto the ground. I'm not doing it anymore. There has to be a better way. And then you call Choose Again, and we're there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm hoping that also answers Anne's question, what issues would compel someone to participate in this program? And I would just say to that, any feeling off in any way, feeling not thriving in any way. It's really, they could be life experiences presenting as huge symptoms or issues, relationship problems, but it could also be, I want to just learn how to live the life that quietly inside I know that I really want to be living. And I really believe that we all have that. We all secretly love life, whether we're aware of it or not, and know that it's possible to really thrive. So another question from Marcella, if the workshop theme is not necessarily a perfect match for the issues we think we're facing, but the time frame suits us better for coming to the center, Is that a reason not to come when it's more convenient? Does it matter what the theme is? I think everyone, there are a few of you who have been to the center and have been to several workshops. You know the answer to that question. Dad, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I think the only distinction there might be is the trauma workshop, because with the trauma workshop, we get people who actually believe they were traumatized. And so it's a slightly different population. And at the end of the first day, they realized that that simply wasn't true and that we now can get to work, and it becomes the same workshop. So I go back to my initial statement about trauma. We're all traumatized. Every single one of us has a traumatic experience. I remember talking to Stan Grof in Milan, where I was speaking at a conference where he was, of course, a giant figure. And I asked him about an experience I had with a client, a female client, who showed all the signs of having been sexually abused. Every single indication was on the table, but I couldn't find it. And we couldn't find it in talking about to her parents, to people around her, and they all said absolutely never, it couldn't have happened. So I presented that to Stan Grof, and he said, ask about the birth. And that was such an eye-opener to me, that the birth is an immensely traumatic experience. And it's an energetic experience that sometimes stays with the baby, or stays with the mother maybe for a while as well, of course, but stays with the baby as a memory of a trauma. And so once we learn to recognize that we're all trauma victims, so to speak, and that it is not a life sentence, then it doesn't really matter what workshop you come to. Every single one of us has relationship issues. Every single one of us would love to transform our life and live a rich and full experience. So if the timing doesn't work for a theme that you relate to, don't worry about it. You're going to have an incredible experience.
Thank you. There's someone here with Rob. It says he's in the Netherlands. That obviously the center of the sessions are being held in English. His knowledge of English is average. Is that a relevant limitation for the therapy? And I'll just answer that briefly. Maybe someone else wants to chime in. I'm remembering we had a client here recently, a few months ago, who had I would say very limited knowledge of English. I think he was also from the Netherlands or from Belgium, but he just had such a clear idea that this is where he wanted to be and this was the work he wanted to do, and he had total faith that it would be fine. And I really think he got more out of the workshop than any of the other clients at the time. I'm sure those of you who were here at the time, he was beaming and got things at such a deep level, and it was such a transformative experience for him. I think probably he heard, like all of us anyway, even if English is your first language, you're going to hear what you need to hear. There's a lot you're not going to hear if it's not landing and it's not the right time to hear something, or it's not relevant to you. And so much of the program is a lot of it is verbal. It's important, it's helpful. We're doing reading and study and sharing and processing, and a lot of it is nonverbal. It wouldn't work if it were only, as much as I love language, it wouldn't work if it were only verbal. So being in this environment, in this container, doing, the yoga, hiking, digital detox, incredible food, loving presence of other people. You're having dinner every night with your counselors, everyone's sitting around the same table together, sharing gratitudes, by candlelight. It's just a transformative experience. So I would say, Rob, it seemed like you wrote your question in perfect English and it would be just fine, like really just fine. Yeah. So I think I think
Let me add a little bit out.
on.
Depending on when he's coming, it's more than likely that there'll be 3 or 4 Dutch-speaking people on staff when he comes. And often when that happens, when we have 1 or 2 people that speak a language that somebody else on the staff can understand and can speak, they'll say, can you please repeat that and I'll take the trouble, or Freddie will take the trouble, or Charlie or Lucas will do it on German, or Claudia will do it in German, to quickly translate what happened at that particular moment. So you have the fortune that we have different language spoken at the center, and Sas will answer anything in Spanish.
Really bad Spanish. And yeah, also, I mean, we also Hebrew, French, there are a lot, you know, it's a very international team, which also speaks, I think, to the universality of this work. It's a very international team, and we will, yes, of course, accommodate as best we can. So we have 2 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, you can type it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Also, so if not,
Well, I saw an interesting question about fear of bugs.
oh yeah, I thought I over addressed that. Okay, go on.
Oh, you did address it? That there
Well,
is
I just kept mentioning it because I like the bug so much. But please, talk about your fear of snakes or whatever. That's great.
See, you're not speaking Dutch, so I didn't understand you. So there is only fear. And that fear, the ego can make that fear into something specific, like the fear of flying or the fear of the darkness or the fear of snakes. And I discovered for myself that as I was beginning, I was absolutely petrified of snakes. I was petrified of spiders. I was so afraid of the dark that before I knew about this work, I would walk in a dark back alley in downtown Vancouver in order to overcome my fear. It didn't work. But what I realized that as I was doing this work, all those fears disappeared. So the fear of darkness is gone. The fear of, I can now pick up a snake with love. I can have a spider jump at me and I say, what a marvelous creature. There is only fear. So as I release the fear and return to an essence and a remembrance of love, all those fears are gone. So yes, we can help you with your fear of insects.
Thank you. Richard, do you have a question? You can unmute yourself.
No, not echt another question, but a little talk to Rob in Dutch because of the language. Ik ben vorige week in Zuid-Frankrijk geweest. En mijn angst voor het Engels praten was ook een beetje aanwezig. Maar ik heb er niet één keer hoeven uit in het Nederlands, Rob. Dus vandaar ook dat ik hier weer zit om de trip naar Costa Rica te maken. Dus je hoeft je niet, geen zorgen te maken. Dat moet je sowieso niet, maar gewoon lekker gaan. Dus dat was het.
Is there a response? No.
Was the question about emotions? Do we work with emotions? We work with emotions slightly differently than perhaps you're used to. And in the beginning, it may seem really cold-hearted. And that's because we don't validate emotions. I'll never give you the reason for your emotions is in X, Y, and Z. No, it isn't. So we teach, as the course teaches, that I choose my feelings. And what we do is transform the I that chooses those feelings. Feelings then become incredibly important because they guide me back to a core belief. And from that point of view, we work with feelings. Mm-hmm. But expressing feelings, as some of you may have learned over the years that you've been on this little planet, expressing feelings like anger expression, for example, gives you a brief experience of relief. And then you're right back where you were. So we learned this practically, but also from my own experience, that expressing feelings is pointless in the long run. It doesn't do anything. It brings temporary relief, but using the feeling for the only purpose for which it is intended, and that's to take me back to a core belief. Now I can get to work. Now I can transform the belief that chose that feeling. And as that belief is transformed and weakened, I feel it less and less. I used to be chronically angry. Now, I have been angry once or twice in the last 3 years, absolutely. There's still beliefs that are there. But the temptation to be right about that anger is gone. So now when I get angry, I will say, well, what am I believing about me right now that chooses this feeling? So that's how we work with feelings.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I think that's it for questions. Really don't hesitate to call us or send an email, send a message, reach out if you have further questions about the program and about El Cielo. For those of you who are, wait, I have a message here. Oh, Rob saying thank you. Thank you, Rob. So next steps, if you'd like to come to El Cielo this winter, is really to go onto our website. You can schedule a call with us, and then we can help walk you through, again, further logistics, scholarships, anything that may be in the way of facilitating you coming here and having this experience. We do have limited space in each workshop, so it's a maximum 10 participants in each workshop. So it's best to really book in advance, but also we try to fit you in if it's last minute. That's okay. Don't be deterred by that. Gadi, did you have anything you wanted to add about next steps?
Yeah, just quickly, just so you know, in the next week, we have, let's say, extra availability to take consultation calls and any questions that you have. It's going to be Andrew, who's our consultation consultant. Diederik is going to take some of these calls. I will take some of these calls. So please call us with any of your questions. You can book a consultation calls on the website. You go to our page. Plus, we're also offering a promotion for you guys. Anyone that's signed up and joined this program. There's a discount. It's a 10% discount, which is pretty substantial discount if you book a retreat before the 15th of October. So you have about 2 weeks for any time between now until the 15th of December. So if you have to finish your workshop before the 15th of December. So please take advantage of that. And if you have any questions about any of that, promotion, scholarships, you want to come, whatever, just call us. One of us will be there. Happy to talk to you. We'll have a half an hour, a good amount of time to answer any of your questions. And hopefully we can get you down here. That's, yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Any last words, Dad? Complete?
Yeah, my last word is incredible gratitude to you, Sas, and to Gadi, and to Freddie, and to Dawn, and to Stace, and to Claudia, and to Donna, and to Zarina, and I begin to sound like an Oscar presentation. I'm incredibly grateful to all the shoulders on which we stand. Without all of them, there'd be no center. So my gratitude is daily. It's pretty well nonstop. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you here. Take care.